So now that game two of the NBA Finals is all done, you're probably thinking, what else do I have to bet on? Well, enter the WNBA. What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Draft Previews, and today I'm going to take you through the most comprehensive WNBA player prop preview for the game between the Connecticut Sun and the Indiana Fever. If it's your first time checking out the channel, I ask you to subscribe because I'm dropping videos just like this every single day. I share my screen, we go through outline, I take you through all the key players, their matchups, their form lines, and I tell you what I like and I tell you what I don't, and I do all this to give you all the information that you need to make the best bets possible. So before we jump into the preview, let's do a quick recap from the bets from my last video. We did go 4-2 on our straight bets between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. First cash of the day at great odds with Kristaps Porzingis over 1.5 rebounds in the first quarter. We followed that up with Jason Tatum under 6.5 points in the first quarter. And we also hit on Luka Doncic under 1.5 assists in the first quarter. We also cashed on Luka Doncic over 9.5 rebounds. And we had two losing players on the day. The first one, Jaden Hardy, a terrible read from myself. He didn't get any game time. My bad. The second one, a bit heartbreaking. We had Jason Tatum over 9.5 rebounds. We got hooked and he finished on 9. It's been a minute since we got a sweep. Today's the day, my friends. So in this game between the Sun and the Fever, the Sun are 11-point favorites into this, heading into this game. Taking a look at the Indiana Fever, looking for a statement win. They've won 2 of their last 3 games, which is pretty wild. They are 2-5 straight up on the road so far this season. Key players, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Nalissa Smith, and Boston. They're probably the 4 that we're going to look into for the Indiana Fever. And for the Connecticut Sun, looking to improve on 10-1. They're 6-1 straight up at home this season. Key players for them, Dewana Bonner, Brianna Jones, Alyssa Thomas, and Dejanay Carrington. So we'll take a look at those, maybe a couple of role players if the numbers stand out to me. In terms of how I think this game should go, I think the Sun should wipe the floor with them, to be honest. I don't care that the Fever have been playing out of the last 3 games, they've won 2. I don't care about that. Sun, top 3 team. They've got a point differential of 9.1 points. They've already beaten the Fever twice this season, a 20 win at home about a month ago. The Sun, they've only been a double-digit favorite one other game so far this season, and they managed to cover that. They've covered in 3 straight overall. I think they absolutely destroyed them. So I might be going to fade some Fever players today, but let's see how we go. So I'll kick it off with the Fever players first. On the road, we'll start with CC Caitlin Clark. See what's cooking. Firstly, using outlier to the best of my ability here, and it's telling us last 10 games, she's been rebounding and passing the ball quite well, covering her rebounds plus assist line in 7 out of her last 10, so that could be a good look. But also fading her could be a good look. He has struggled against this team. So let's jump into it. We'll start with the rebounds plus, as it's got a pretty good hit rate. So that line's at 11.5. She's cast this in 7 out of her last 10, averaging 12.4 rebounds plus assists. She does have a difficult matchup. The Sun, fewest rebounds and the second fewest assists allowed. If we look at head-to-head matchups, she's gone under this in both of her games against the Sun so far this season. So, yeah, I think the fade on Caitlin Clark could be the wave here. Her points prop, 19.5. She scored 20 and then 17 in the 2 games against the Sun. 32 and 27 minutes, 15 and 11 shots, and a whole lot of 3-pointers. She actually shot pretty well from downtown, 36 and 43. It's not the worst, and she did not miss any free throws. If we look at her more recent form, let's look at so far this season. She's covered this line of 6 out of 12 games, averaging 16.8. One filter that I want to look at is how she's gone on the road. 7 road games this season, covered this line in 4 out of the 7. So she did score 20 points on the road against the Sun in a loss. So the points prop, we probably won't fade too much, I guess. But I'd probably still be leaning that way, to be honest with you. So I'm leaning to the under in Caitlin Clark points. Not a bet that I'm going to take, though, but definitely the way that I'm leaning. Taking a look at her assists, that line is at 6.5. She's covered this in 5 out of 12 games this season, averaging 6.3. So I'd probably be leaning to the under here. It's got a slightly higher hit rate, but in terms of the matchup, the Sun allow the second fewest assists in the league. And if we look at the games against the Sun, she had 3 assists in the first game, followed up with 5 assists in a 4-point loss. So even when the game was close, she only had 5 assists. And you can see it here. So I'd be leaning the under in Caitlin Clark assists. Like for her to get 7, It's going to be a different, I believe, on the road. But let's check out her assists on the road anyway. So she's actually only hit the under in 3 out of 7 games on the road, which is quite interesting. So that could leave a little bit of doubt, but it's definitely the way that I'd be leaning. So I'll be putting the picks, by the time the video is uploaded, I'll be showing picks that I already know that I'm going to take. I'll be showing those in the pinned comment, and my final picks will be on Winnable. So be sure to check that out. But Caitlin Clark, looking at the under in her assists, the matchup is difficult and her form against the opponent isn't there. The recent form is a bit up and down, but she has performed well on the road, so she could get close to this. But I think 7 assists on the road against this team might be too much for her. Let's take a look at her rebounds now. 5.5 is the line. She's covered this in 6 out of 12 games this season, averaging 5.3 boards. In head-to-head matchups, struggled. 0 rebounds in the first game, then 3 games in the following game. So, yeah, the fade on her rebounds and assists might be a good look here. Now we look at the matchup, the Sun, fewest rebounds. If we take a look at just the games on the road, what do we see? On the road, she's actually rebounded quite well. 4 out of her last 7, 5.4. But a lot of this could do with matchups. Spark are ass. The Mystics are ass. So up against these top teams, probably hasn't rebounded as well. So, yeah, I'd be looking at the under for her rebounds as well. Rebounds and assists, I'd be leaning to the under for Clark. But yeah, I'll break down the odds and do a little bit more research into the matchup before I make my final picks. But that's definitely one that I've been leaning for Caitlin. Next up, let's go through Kelsey Mitchell. Let's talk about it. Her points line, 15.5 in this game. She's covered this crazy 8 out of 10 games this season. Your girl's been popping off. Very consistent performer here, Kelsey Mitchell. My Lord. 80% hit rate this season. Against the Sun, she's hitting 3 out of 6 games. That first game against the Sun was one of the games where she actually went under, but she followed that up with 17 points at home. If we look at the season and we just break down her road games, we can see that she's covered this line in 6 out of 7 road games. The only game where she went under on the road was this very matchup against the Connecticut Sun. So she's been very consistent, but will the matchup be too tough for her? So if we look at that first game, she only played 16 minutes though. So I'm not too concerned about that now that I think about it. Let's look at the matchup just against Connecticut Sun. So this season, she's playing 30 minutes on average. In the head-to-head matchups, in games where she had at least 30 minutes, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 games, she's 2 and 4. But the games where she did go under, she was very close. So for this one, yeah, lean to the over. Not one that I'm going to take, but I can see myself putting Kelsey Mitchell in for a bat. So 10 points for the bat. Feel comfortable taking her there. Taking a look at a 3-point market, 1.5, minus 194 though, so the odds are pretty terrible. She's cashed this in 5 or 6 games against the Suns and in 8 of 12 this season. So I'd lean to the over, but at these odds, not a bet that I'm willing to take. Who else we got from this team? Let's take a look at one of my favorites, Lissa Smith. You know, I like it when you got 2 capital letters first name. Let's talk about it. Her points line, 13.5. So far this season, she's cashed the under in 8 of her 12 games. So she's gone over in only 4 out of her last 12. What's interesting is that her last 4 games is where we've seen a big lift in her minutes, though. So the minutes, you got to factor that in and probably more of the muchness here where in the last 4 games. So, yeah, I'd be a bit hesitant to back the under here. If we look at head-to-head matchups, last 2 games against the Sun, 13 points in both of them. In those games, 26 and 27 minutes. As we saw here, she's playing at least 30 minutes in her last 4. Last 4, she's averaging well over 30 minutes. So I'm not sure whether that's due to injuries or whatever it may be, but I would be leaning to the over here for Nalissa Smith. But if we don't take that, then 10 points for that for Nalissa. Let's go. I don't mind that. So I'll just need to research why she's had an uplift in her minutes. Are there injuries? Perhaps. One thing for me to check. Let's take a look at her rebound line, 7.5. She cashed this in 4 straight. So where she's got the extra minutes, she's been cashing this out well. Prior to that, though, a little bit up and down and inconsistent. But if we take a look at her head-to-head stuff, She's averaging 9 rebounds against this team in 5 games. She's covered in 3 out of the 5. This season, played them twice, 9 rebounds in 1 game, 6 rebounds in the following. So if she's going to get an extra 3 to 4 minutes, yeah, I could probably lean to the over. But again, this is another play where it's quite back-worthy, meaning it's a bitch-ass parlay, and I'm starting to bitch it. But I think the rebounds and her points, not a bad look given the extra opportunities. I don't know if she can cover that line, though, but I think she can get close to it. So it could be one of those lines that's quite sharp. So an alternate line is what I'd be looking at. First quarter props, I'm not too keen on that. No, thank you. Let's take a look at Aaliyah Boston. So Aaliyah Boston had some pretty strong games against this team. So her points line at 10.5. She's covered this in 6 out of 12 games this season, averaging 10.3 points per game. Minutes, 28 minutes a night. Not overly inconsistent unless she gets into foul trouble, I'd be assuming, or she gets injured. But yeah, for the most part, you can expect 28 to 30 from Aaliyah Boston. If we look at the head-to-head matchups, she's covered in 3 out of her last 6 against the Sun, but her last 3 she's gone under. 2 of those were this season where she scored 4 and 10 points. 29 and 30 minutes. The shot attempts, not awful, but not getting to the free throw line much. So really just relying from shots from the field. So she'd need to make 6 shots, and she hasn't done that for quite some time against this team. And then on the season, yeah, she's only made 6 or more buckets in 2 games this season. So in other games, living at the free throw line, hasn't got into the free throw line very well against this team. So for points, I'd probably be hesitant betting that. I don't want any of that action. But let's take a look at her rebound. She's a pretty strong rebounder if you get the right matchup. So she's covered this in 5 out of 12 games this season, averaging 6.5. Funny, lines at 6.52. Against the Sun, she's hit this in 4 out of the last 6, the 2 games this season, 6 and 8 rebounds. So I think she's someone who can get close. Probably lean to the over. At minus 130, I'm not overly keen at playing, but that could be something that goes into the BAP as well. Let's check it out. So I'll put that in there. Could take her for 5 rebounds. It could be a big-ass slip, but why not? Got to have a bit of fun with it, you know what I'm saying? That's Aaliyah Boston. Points and rebounds. Who else we got? Let's jump into the Connecticut Sun, shall we? Let's start with Dawana Bonner. Now, I took her under in her last game, which cashed, thankfully. It's got a really good hit rate, her under, but matchup, pretty easy one for her. So her line's at 20.5. So if you take a look at this graph, Outliers calling out that she's gone under this in 8 out of 10 games this season. She's averaging 18.8, lines at 20.5. Now, before you get excited and you just start betting it, she's gone under in 5 out of her last 6 against the Fever, but the 2 games she played against them this season, she scored 20 and 22 points. So it's going to be a tight one. In the last game, well, the 20 points, where she had 20 points against them was a blowout, so she only played 28 minutes. The game she went over, she got 35 minutes. And as of late, she's been getting 34 to 30 minutes if the game's close. So unless there's a blowout, if you think there's going to be a blowout, you take the under. I think the Sun cover here, so probably the other way that I'd be leaning. But I just bet her on the under and cashed it. I don't want to run that back again because it's a sweaty bet. Very good player, takes a lot of shots. So I'm going to have to pass on to one of Bonner props. If you want to look at a 3-point market, at 1.5. She's cashed this in 6 out of 10 games this season. She's got a pretty good matchup. The Fever allow a lot of shots from deep. If we look at the head-to-head, though, she's under this in 6 consecutive games against the Indiana Fever. So this could be one of those things where she can get to the rim whenever she wants, perhaps. We take a look at her attempts. Well, she's averaging 5.2 in these games. Well, look at that. 0 from 3 in game 1, 1 from 7 in the following game. So yeah, look, despite her not hitting it against the Fever, I'd probably have to lean to the over for this one. Lean to the over for Bonner's 3-pointers made prop. The volume's not too bad, averaging 5 attempts this season, but she's only shooting 29%. So if she's going to attempt 5 at 29%, she's not making 2. So I'd lean to the over because of her recent form, but yeah, not a bet that I feel I have an end on. Let's take a look at her rebounds. 6.5 boards. She's covered this in 4 out of her last 10. Her last 3 games been rebounding like an absolute beast. 10, 8, and 8. If we look at her games against the Fever, she's covered in 2 out of 6. The 2 games this season, 6 and 3 rebounds for her. So 6.5, I know that's moved up because I bet her over in the last game. 6.5, I probably lean to the under, but her recent form does scare me a little bit. So, yeah, looks like no bets for Bonner for me. I'm going to pass on that. But let's look at her close friend, Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa Thomas is a beast. We just get her on the right day. Let's talk about it. Her points line is at 12.5. Now, she's hit the 5 out of 10 games on the season, averaging 12.7 points. But if you look back at her last 6 games, she's only cashed this in 1 out of her last 6 games, which is pretty wild. In those games, what are we seeing? There were 2 games she had reduced minutes. Since then, 4 games with about 35 minutes as an average. The volume, not very great, 9.8 as an average, 47% from the field. So I'd probably be a bit hesitant betting that. But at the same time, she crushed the Fever in the 2 games this season, 13 and 24 points in those games, 8 attempts and 14 attempts. But she was living at the free throw line. Look at that. 5 from 8 and then 8 from 12. So if you look at her more recent form, is she not getting to the free throw line? No, she's not. So she's not getting to the free throw line as of late, but her attempts have remained the same. So if we see more aggressive Alyssa Thomas, I can definitely see her going over this 12.5. The 12.5, it's dropped quite a bit. Earlier in the season, her line was up about 14.5. Now she has an excellent matchup. I probably lean to the over here, but this would be one of the plays that makes me look like a genius or like a jackass because she hasn't gotten close to it lately. But I'd be leaning to the over here for Alyssa Thomas. I'm going to put that down on my list of things to look through. All right, let's check her assist prop. 8.5 minus 138. That's cashed in 4 of 10 games, averaging 8.6. 40% hit rate. If you look at the head-to-head, though, 2 out of 6 against the Fever. But the 2 games where she did cash this in were the 2 games she played them this season. 13 and 9 assists against the Fever, who sit in the bottom 4 in terms of assists allowed. So I think that's a good look. Again, hit rate hasn't been crazy, but at minus 138, I'd be pretty hesitant, but I'll do some line shopping anyway. Let's take a look. And let's take a look at her rebounds. Numbers at 10 now. She's hit this in 4 of 10 games. She's got over 10 rebounds in 4 of 10 games. 9.6 is an average. Against the Fever, 4 out of her last 6. This season, 10 and 14 rebounds against them. She gets more minutes. She'll get more boards, that's for sure. But yeah, it's a tough one. Honestly, it's a tough one in Alyssa Thomas because this is a big number. 10 rebounds. I don't hate it. That's what I'm going to say. Plus money play. Plus money play here for Alyssa Thomas. So I want to look a little bit deeper into that. And when I say I want to look a little bit deeper, I'll be going on to WNBA.com and like going through the matchup data to see what teams are giving. That's all I'm really going to be doing. Nothing crazy. I might even put it through an AI model as well. I'll have a look at the AI model. But yeah, her points I lean to the over despite the form. Her rebounds and assists, I lean to the over to that too. So she's capable of a lot. We'll see. We'll see if I end up betting on her. Let's take a look at Brianna Jones. So Brianna Jones, her points line's at 13.5. She's cashed this in 5 out of her last 10 games. 13.3 as an average. If we take a look at her head-to-head against the Fever, not too great. 1 out of her last 4. Played them twice this season. Scored 8 points in both of those games. One thing to note, she only got about 20 minutes on average in the 2 games earlier. If we look at more recently, the minutes have kind of gone up. So she only played 20 minutes in the games against the Fever. She's averaging 25 minutes per game on the season. So I wouldn't jump straight to the under because she has struggled against them in the past. If we look at her attempts, 8 attempts in this against the Fever and 4 attempts in the first game. Since then, 13, 8, 15, 14, 7, 8, and 12. So definitely the volume is up. So I don't feel comfortable betting on the over, but I would on the under either. Take a look at her rebounds. That line is at 5.5. So she's got under this line in 5 straight games. She's hit this line in only 3 out of 10 games. So it's been a while since she's been able to cover this. We've looked at her minutes. Let's look at the head-to-head stuff. 2 out of 4 against the Fever. The 2 strong games she had in points and rebounds were last season. This season, 3 and 4 rebounds. But once again, limited minutes is what I'm saying. So what I'd probably be looking at, though, I don't have it available here. I was going to say points plus rebounds, but could look at the points plus rebounds and then take the under. But yeah, I'm not loving Brianna Jones enough to bet on what I'm saying. Let's go with Dejanay Carrington. Now, I bet on this lovely young lady not too long ago, and it cooked me. But let's see if we can get a good read on her today. 11.5 points. She's covered this in 6 out of her last 10. So the hit rate's not bad, averaging 11.9. In head-to-head matchups against the Fever, She did cover this in both games this season, 16 and 14 points. Prior to that, under in 4 straight. So in those 2 games where she covered into the fever, 30 and 35 minutes, 15 and 13 attempts, right? So the volume's nice and the minutes good too. Let's check this season stats. So she's averaging 10.9 attempts. So those 2 games against the fever are 2 out of the 3 highest field goal attempt games she's taken. Since then, declined. If we look at her minutes, 30 and 35 minutes. Well, she's averaging 30 minutes a night. So she's getting the minutes. My question is the volume. So if she's not going to put the volume up, 11.5 seems like the right number. But look, I'd lean to over because we know that this Fever team defensively, not that great. So there's going to be points for all. So Carrington, I'm going to dive into some data. We'll see if we can find something juicy on her. But I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. The rebound line, 4.5. She's hit this in 5 out of 10 games this season, averaging 5 rebounds in head-to-head matchup. She's covered this in 3 straight, 3 out of 6 games against the Indiana Fever earlier this season, 5 and 6 boards. So covering this line in both of those games. So yeah, that could be a good look too. I don't mind the rate on that. She's done it against them before. Who's to say she can't do it against them again? But I'll take a close look at it. Let me see what I can come up with. Anything else I can pull out of this? Maybe let's look at the home games. So at home, she's covered in 3 out of 7, averaging 4.8. 3 rebounds she's hit consistently, so that could be bat-worthy. This big old bat, this bat's growing. Okay, 5 out of 10. All right, so I don't mind that. Put that down as a lean. So checking to see if there's anybody else I may have missed. Maybe somebody's been playing extremely well as of late. Maybe not. So this is one thing I always do. I'll preview each player, and then I use Outlier to tell me what hit rates are good and what isn't. So if we've got it filtered to the last 5, so Bonner's gone under in 5 straight. Jones gone under her rebounds in 5 straight. Clark's gone under assists in 4 out of her last 5 games. Alyssa Thomas gone under her points and assists and her points and her rebounds. But that's because she's not scoring 4 out of her last 5. Let's look at the head-to-head stuff. So we got a lot of Clark unders, which is cash the under. Bonner points and rebounds. She's gone under that in every single game against the Fever. So I missed this one. Let's go. What do we got here? 26.5 points and rebounds for Bonner. So she has gone under this in 6 straight games against the Indiana Fever. This season, she's gone under in 6 out of her last 10. So the games where she's gone over is when she's putting about 20 points and 8 to 10 rebounds together. So the points may not be there. The rebounds have been there as of late. So it does scare me a little bit. But she does have Brianna Jones. She does have Alyssa Thomas in the team. So they could take some of her boards. I might be crazy enough to take the under here on Bonner. I might have been spoken into it by the data. But one for me to dive into. All right, let's check to see if there's anything else that pops up on the radar here in terms of the head-to-head stuff. So we've got the fades on Bonner. Alyssa Thomas. Doubles at minus 210. No thank you. Kelsey Mitchell 3-pointers. We went through that, but the odds weren't great. Fade on Brianna Jones. The minutes is not a fair play. Yeah, there's nothing else that's screaming out to me. This is the season starts. Filters. Aaliyah Boston overs. Brianna Jones unders. No. Well, I think I might have covered it all. How about that? How quick and how efficient, eh? Look, this video might be close to ending, but my work is not even close to being done. I'm going to start exporting this. I'm going to keep diving. But, when I say I'm going to dive, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'll be completely honest with you. I'll be going onto WNBA.com, going through the stats, seeing what teams give up to certain positions, and I'll try to correlate with that with the leans that I have. And for the player points, I'll be going over to Props Madness. If you have not used Props Madness before, I encourage you to check it out. It lets you know where players score from, where they score the majority of their points from, the type of scoring, position on the court, but it also lets you know the team that they're playing, how they play defense, to all of those things. So you can find some really good correlation. And if you do like somebody for points, Props Madness is definitely the way to go. So here, hoping that we cash out on today's bets. Good luck if you choose to ride with me. If not, let me know what you're going to be doing in the comments section below. If you did not notice, I finally upgraded my camera. I play that 10-year-old webcam, and I've got an actual camera to film videos on. So what I want you to do, if you did make it this far in this video, put in the comment section, Sony. If you put in Sony, I'll know that you made it this far. Other than that, lads, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.